welcome back everyone to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So if you've read the description and you've looked at the thumbnail, then you will know today that I am creating the seashell bed from Animal Crossing New Horizons. Ever since I saw this piece of furniture in-game, I've been dying to recreate it, and I've been searching all over the internet looking at everyone's different designs because you can customise it, and I absolutely fell in love with one that was uploaded to Reddit by a poster called The Good Failure, and here is that picture. And I was dying to create this, and I knew that I'd have to create it with resin, so I was so excited to get started. So I had these shells here. These were my mum's. She gave them to me, and they've just been, to be honest, sitting on my shelf doing absolutely nothing. So I thought, what better way to use them than in one of my craft videos. So they've all been cleaned off. I've got rid of all the bits of dust, and just started with a nice, really clean base. So you can see my initial idea is obviously to attach it all together. I wasn't entirely sure whether I wanted to do it initially with hinges or just, fuse them together. I hadn't really decided, but I did know that this shell here, this was one that I wanted to be the base, purely because this had the more darker patches, and since I had a rough idea of what I was going to be doing to fill the actual bed part in, I knew that I'd be using that one. The idea that I decided was to go with air dry clay originally. I'd been toying between polymer clay and air dry clay, but I decided with the air dry clay because it's cheaper. This one had been left out a bit long, so I had to leave it in water to soak for quite a while before it was usable. So I got started straight away on the top piece rather than messing about with the bottom piece. So started off, I'm using UV resin. As you can see here, this is the brand that I use. So it is called Palmero. It's from Palmero Crafts. I like this UV resin. There's lots of different brands. This is one of the ones that I've tried. I'm using to colour the resin mica powder. So this mica powder that I'm using is called Subfox. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I really like using this mica powder. It comes in a cute little set, so I will link that in the description. Start off with a small amount of mica powder because I'm not entirely sure how much you need to get the desired colour, because you only need a tiny amount, and I didn't want to make the pigment too dark. I still wanted it to be quite transparent and give that sort of opaly transparent effect. I don't know what words I'm looking for there, but I knew I didn't want it to be super opaque, so I did only use a small amount and added more as I needed to. As you can see from the picture, I kept the picture up all times so I could use that as a reference. I went for the colours, pink, purple, blue and yellow. I mixed them all up individually in each little pots and added them in a sort of random pattern as it goes. So when it came to pouring, I didn't exactly have a plan. I used the reference picture to see where the colours were most, situated. Is that the right word? Where they were all, roughly placed around the image, and then just sort of roughly went in with that. As I say, I didn't exactly have a plan in mind. Just sort of tried to use the photos as a reference, and then did my own sort of take. In between, the resin was curing under my UV lamp. Obviously I've cut all that out. The original video, when I first uploaded it all to start editing, it was 1 hour and 58 minutes long. So I'm actually amazed that I've been able to get it down to just 23 minutes. That in itself is incredible, to be honest. I love the turquoise colour. Honestly, I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love blue anyway. Blue is my favourite colour, but I feel like that's such a crisp blue. It reminds me of the ocean, and I think it just looks beautiful. That is just adding the pinks and the blues together. I did off camera that you can't see. I did sort of give them a mix together so they weren't such blocked colours against each other, so that they merged and blended and just really woven together so that it looks completely natural. Going in with the purple, I used a tiny amount compared to the others because the purple is such a dark and rich colour, and I really didn't want it to be opaque. I didn't want any of them to be opaque, so I did only use a small amount of mica powder. So you can see here, this is where I really start to sort of develop the technique, if there even is a technique to this. But originally, the sort of plan in my head was that I was going to do each individual colour, dry it at the second, and then I thought, you know what, that's not going to look good because it's just going to all look really blocky, really, you know, unnatural. So then I decided to just sort of add them all in, sort of give them a bit of a mix together, and then cure it. You can see later on I do change it because that in itself was taking too long. So I just sort of added the colours on and then let the resin move around the shell. That way it just kind of, it merged itself, added its own sort of, it went wherever it wanted to, and the colours evenly distributed across the shell rather than me swirling them about and adding just. And what you can see all over my hands, it's not dry skin, it's actually the air dry clay. I did wash my hands, obviously. I didn't get off all of the air dry clay. Now with the yellow, I did dry the yellow individually. My thought process behind that was that obviously the yellow is a lighter colour and I didn't want that mixing so much with all the other colours because I didn't want the yellow to get lost. I still wanted the yellow to really stand out, and I'm glad that I did that because you'll see once I add this layer here, the yellow still shone through really nicely. It didn't get blended in, it didn't get lost in the colour, and you can still see it really well. So I'm glad I did decide to cure the yellow first. Really sorry that the shell is quite rough. I really need to start to learn and to keep my hands in the camera. When you get lost in a craft, it's so hard to forget to keep your camera presence. I'm really sorry that I'm not very good at that yet. I really feel like it is starting to take shape now. You can see where the colours are merging together. It's starting to look, you know, really pretty. It's sort of bringing on the life of it, and I'm pretty sure here is where I start to change my tactic of, you know, letting it guide itself around the shell. Yeah, you can see that I just sort of let it flow, let it do its own thing, and I do think it sort of added to the uniqueness of the pattern. You can see it wasn't as not uniform as such, but it wasn't as, you know, dead lined as the other ones. It had a lot more swirl to it. Now that it was getting close to the edge, I was trying really hard for it to not run off the edge. I wanted to make sure that it coated everywhere, but I obviously didn't want all the resin to drip off the edge and to lose that resin. So what I don't do on camera is I get it as close to the edge as possible, and then I just use the toothpick just to get it on the edge so that it's all covered. And of course I do go over it again just to make sure that all the outer rims they have all got a bit of colour and that they're not just the pale white. So I think what I was showing here is you can see some of the where some of the resin is higher than the others. It's not even. There are some bumps. I do correct that later in the video and you'll see how I do that. I'm quite excited for that part. I loved doing that bit, but I just wanted to point that out to you so that you can see that it is something I address. And here is where I get to my favourite part. Now I love white glitter. Honestly, I absolutely love it. And I didn't want it to be too thick. I wanted it to just be slightly shimmery. I didn't want it to be, you know, too packed with glitter. From the first and second layer, it's still a little bit uneven, but mostly, you know, the first layer has done the job. So I just go in with the last one just to make sure everywhere's coated, getting it nice and even, and I just drain out any of the excess because I want it to be all nice and even and smooth. This is the base shell. This was just a little lid from a pot that I had. I super glued it just to keep it in shape, keep it in place, and then I've used some UV resin just to secure it. It was a lot harder than I originally hoped it would be. I had left it out for a little bit too long, but I'd left it to soak in water for a little while so it'd become usable again. And all I do here is I'm just putting some underneath the lid just so that it's, you know, fully secured, it's not going to fall out of place. And I just get the clay and I just smush it all into place. The thing with clay, if you've never worked with air dry clay before or any type of clay, you do just have to smooth it into place. You have to, you know, really just take your time with it, be patient. It's not going to be smooth, but I didn't really need it to be. I just needed it to fill that gap, because what I did end up doing is using some white polymer clay. I just rolled out a layer probably about 1 centimetre thick, and I used the shell as a guide. Cut out the top, cut out the shape, and then just placed it on top. So here you can see obviously I've finished filling the base layer in, and I'm just smoothing it all over, making sure it's all sort of roughly in shape that I want it to be, and even leaving a gap between the base and the edge because that was where the polymer clay was going to go over. For the polymer clay that I was talking about, these hadn't cured yet, so I did this one, the first little ring, as a way of separating the top bed part, and just to make sure that the pearl didn't fall into the lid. So I cured that at the temperatures. I think it was 110 degrees for half an hour. I did do it slightly longer, but it was still fine. I used this silicone tool to just push down the edges so it's got more of a rounded edge for the bed, because I didn't want it to be, you know, so harsh cut lines. I wanted it to be smooth like bedding. So I wasn't too bothered about the fingerprints in the top part of the polymer clay, because I was going to be coating it with resin anyway. I just wanted to make sure that those sides were all smooth, that they weren't really sharp and jaggedy, and that they were nice and rounded. So here we have them after curing. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what happened with the light there, but here you'll see me attaching all the pieces together. So I just use Gorilla Glue to keep it in place. To be honest, I'm not very fond of the Gorilla Glue. I don't find it works very well. It attaches everything together other than what you actually want it to stick, so I'm just simply using it up until I can get some different glue. I did glue it on whilst it was still warm. The reason behind this was because I wanted it to still have some flexibility. Obviously when polymer clay first comes out the oven, it is still slightly bendable, and I wanted it to still be slightly bendable so that I can press it all into place, as you can see me doing here, making sure it all fits in the curves and there's no just big empty gaps. And this is the pearl that we're using. This is something that I've made previously, and it's from epoxy resin and some of that mica powder that you saw earlier, a very, very tiny amount. As you can see, it fits perfectly as I had planned, and what I do here is I attach a chain to it, and I think it looks really, really cute. So here I was sort of toying with the idea of what I was going to do with the shell. I originally was thinking of doing hinges. That didn't work out too well, but you'll see why. Here I'm just coating the top of the bed part with some of that white pearl mica powder, just so I can give it that proper shimmery finish. I had to keep scooping out the resin from the base of the shell. It kept falling, well not falling, it kept dripping over the edge, and it kept going underneath the shell. You'll see me scoop it out a couple of times, but generally it sort of behaved how I wanted it to. It cured really nicely, you know, it didn't take very long to cure at all. There was no sticky finish at all, so I was really, really happy with how the cure finished. And this is sort of where it all started to go a little bit downhill for me. I don't generally get on with hinges anyway. I find them far too fiddly, but I really liked the idea of having it open and closed, so I tried it. I used the Gorilla Glue originally to just keep them in place, because my plan was to resin them into place, but the super glue, I just wanted it to keep it there whilst I transferred it from the table to under the lamp. I just really don't like Gorilla Glue. I find it doesn't actually stick the two pieces together that you want it to stick, but it sticks your hands to everything else. I really, really just don't like it, to be honest with you. It's not my favourite. You could tell I was starting to get a little bit annoyed with it. I don't know what happened here. I just really don't. Just making sure that the hinges could still open and close, because obviously I didn't want to super cure them shut. You can see here I try again to secure the hinges to the base. It was secure on the top lid now, it was pretty secure, to be honest. It wasn't wobbly at all, but trying to get it attached to the bottom piece, honestly I just lost the will to live with it, and I did end up giving up after a little while. Thought maybe I could rescue it with the resin, just doing it straight that way, and honestly I don't know whether it was because the top bit was quite heavy, maybe that was the reason why, but it just didn't work. So in the end I super glued the two together, and you can see I even had difficulty doing that because it just didn't want to stick, and you know there was enough of the surfaces touching so that it should have stayed together, but for whatever reason it didn't want to actually secure it. I was getting quite annoyed with it by this point. So we go back in with the resin just to make sure that it's all secure, that it's not wobbly. My plan all along was to use the resin to secure it together. The glue is just there as a stopgap while I transfer it from the table under the lamp. That's the thing I love about UV resin. It is actually, you know, it's really strong. It's a really strong bonding material, and once it's fully cured, it is, you know, pretty strong. I mean, you can see here that it's holding up its weight. I do a bit on the back purely just for extra security, and just so that it can sort of drip between the two pieces, and it's secured from both sides so it's not wobbly at all. And as you can see, it's completely cured. It's strong, it's a little bit wobbly, but it holds itself up. I was toying with the idea of adding like a heart underneath as a leg, but I decided against that in the end. Honestly, I really love how it turns out. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think it looks, you know, it doesn't look natural obviously, but it doesn't look too unnatural. Here's a side-by-side comparison, and again, you know, all credit goes to the Good Failure who took the picture and uploaded it to Reddit. So I will link I will put in the links, you know, where you can go and find that video, upvote it, give it a thumbs up, whatever you do on Reddit. I don't use Reddit, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments, and give me some suggestions for anything else you'd like to see. I love doing Animal Crossing pieces, and I love Animal Crossing. It's literally one of my favourite games right now. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll have a lovely day, and I hope you tune in next time. Bye!